track, which means you've got to make it in between. So you don't want to beat your stuff up, but obviously you need to make a time slip, hit that's going to count.
Couple of Chevrolets with 5 decades between them. You can see the difference in styling without me even telling you the years, but let's tell you who they are. The car in the right-hand side, Sean Fink. This guy used to have I want to say it was like, what, a 65, 66 Chevy 2 wagon that he used to drive. This is his new car, and so far, it is stout piece. Chad, you know what this thing's run?
You know what? I can tell you that Fink has been building this car for a while. This thing is beautiful, like you said, stunning. I do not know how quick it has been yet, but I know that if it's going to keep up with James in the left lane with Ruby, it is going to have to move, and it's going to be fun to watch. I have to tell you, I'm a Tri-5 Chevy owner. I have a 56. A 55 is real good, and orange is bad to the bone.
He's got the little Corvette with the small tire, and Sean Fink laying down the big tire, 115 on the 60-foot. Coming down there, 721, 188 miles an hour. But he has no parachutes out, so he's testing those brakes.
He's got TBMs on that bad boy. He'll have no problem making it before the shutdown.
James Taal going for the 850-based class. 860 at 164 will get him close, but I don't think you're going to want to turn something in that's a tenth of a second above your brake. That's going to be 60 foot. That's not a bad lap. He might decide to come back and turn it up some more. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. See, some of these guys will kind of go out there and they'll lay down like an easy run, then they'll come back and turn it up some more, and come back and turn it up some more. Just depends. Here comes James Taal, the car that they call Ruby. Yeah, this is Cleetus McFarland's car that he bought at an auction. Then he found out that it had a truck motor in it, and they gave him a good excuse to put a turbo on it. The hood has been gone ever since. So the car known as Ruby. It is 7-second capable, but I believe they have it turned down to run the 850 class this week. So James Taal went 8.60. He's only a tenth of a second away from the bottom of the field. Problem is, there's going to be a lot of cars in that 8.5 second range. So James Taal going to try one more time. And you see they got it kind of gagged down off the starting line. So again, he's looking for 8.50 on the scoreboard. That's what he wants. 8.53 at 163, that's a lot better than the 8.60. Not sure if they'll call that good and pack it up and head for the...
Man, James Tall's driving the car right here, all steering like a madman out of the water. Dude, we'll give you another car for that, my friend. And Nicky Bobby in the right lane in this super fun Virgin. Looking to make a big number right here.
Chad, I'm glad to see that Adam Hodson dressed up for the occasion. He's got his tuxedo and his big hat on as he watches his partner, Nick Taylor, otherwise known as Nicky Bobby. The new 91 Camaro that they just picked up and stuffed a twin-turbo LS motor in. He's going to stage up against James Taal in the car called Ruby, the turbocharged auction Corvette. Nick Taylor with a 715 and he didn't like it. Did not like it. James is going to run all the way to the finish line. 847 with a 2. He's too fast. Too fast.
Ouch.
Wow, it's kind of interesting to see this. Cleetus McFarland coming back up for another whack. So far, 735. That is his best pass out of the El Camino he calls Mullet. I believe that is his best pass ever in this car. Oh, this one might be interesting. This could be a grudge race. That makes sense. James Taal doing the burnout across the starting line in his boss's car. Yeah, the car they call Ruby. So Cleetus McFarland, the purveyor of both these cars, currently he's wheeling Mullet. That's his newest car, the El Camino. Out of the Motion Raceworks stable and KSR Performance helped put together. So Cleetus, over on the left side. James Taal in Ruby, over on the right side. So Ruby already has an 847 to his liking. James Taal, I believe, also went in the 850 range. So they're probably trying to get both of them figured out. run a little bit closer to the 850 index or a little faster. Dr. Tunemal over there working on something. Got them all figured out. Cleetus is going to roll the window up and he's going to go back up to the starting line. Yep, there he goes. This is a heavy car. Keep that in mind. I mean, like when you're looking at the fact that both of these cars have run deep in the 7s, and everybody always wonders why something doesn't run faster, you got to take weight into effect. That Corvette is a solid 500 pounds less than the El Camino. Look, Cleetus backs out of the beam. So James will get a single pass here. James run a single down the right-hand side. Cleetus didn't like it for some reason when he went up to stage. Oh, and James goes too fast yet again. 846 at 161, so Ruby has laid down now 2 runs that are too quick for 850. At 71 miles an hour. All right, ladies and gentlemen, final pair to go down the racetrack, and how ironic. There'll be a couple of people that live not too far away from this racetrack. James Taal and Garrett Mitchell, otherwise known as Cleetus McFarland. I'm not sure if he doesn't like people announcing him as Garrett. He always goes by Cleetus, you know? Yes, tag card says Cleetus. Some people know him as Garrett, but a lot of people know him as Cleetus. James Taal, most people probably know him as Jack Stand Jimmy. Or James Get the Toolbox. So James wheeling the car known as Ruby. It's the auctioned Corvette that they picked up a few years ago, and they said it's got an iron truck plug in it, so let's go turbo on it. It's just got better from there. Early 122 to the 60. 480 at the 8th mile. Here it comes. Oh, the parachute out early. 761 at just 152. He went 480 at 151 miles an hour to the 8th mile, but he drops the laundry early. That will not better his 735 from earlier. James Taal goes 862. That does not better what he previously put down. So they made a side-by-side run. Nothing wrong with that.
Warren Evans mentioned he was outside the groove. He was over there in the glue, but unfortunately he was aimed at the mile-an-hour cone at the top end of the racetrack, and it just kept going that way. I think he lifted because he was getting close over there, and obviously that's going to impact it. But, dude, Glenn Hunter in one of the bad-to-the-bone tri-5s that is here this weekend in the left lane. That thing is, as you said, 7-second capable, and it is fun to watch. Going up against Ruby with James Taal behind the wheel.
He's obviously looking to get a little closer to that 850 window. He went 840 earlier today. Glenn Hunter just blows the tires off. He went 801 on his previous pass, and it looks like that's probably what he's going to have to turn in here. James Taal, not what he wanted, 867, 155, because that's not going to get him closer to the 850 mark. And Glenn Hunter, also another veteran of drag and drive. Yeah.
So again, if you have a compression tester, Cleetus is going to need that compression tester over by the black semi in the pits.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure he needs it right about, and now's probably a good time.
And he's going to stay up here and he's going to watch Ruby make a pass. That's James Taal in the C6. The left lane, however, that's the man, Tom McGilton. McGilton in the ZL1, why not Camaro? That's a Larson chassis, and he's actually got Larry Larson riding with him in the passenger seat.
Yeah, you want to talk about a car that checks all the right boxes. I mean, yeah, it's hard to call a ZL1 Camaro a sleeper, but I'll tell you what, man, this thing has all the right body lines, stock hood still on it. They shoved a big block Chevy and twin big old snail superchargers underneath the hood, and they did it all in a beautiful package. I mean, yeah, I'm slightly biased. I come from a GM family, but I'll tell you what, you know, when you look at the big old standing out of the hood with no hood over for James Taal in the auction Ruby Corvette versus the Camaro, yeah, it's hard not to love the Camaro, but it's also hard not to love how fast it goes. Yesterday, 722, 199.8 miles an hour. I'll bet Tom wants a 200-mile-an-hour lick out of that ZL. James Taal on the other end, you know what he wants? He wants an 8.50 time slip. That's exactly what he wants to see. Tom's got it boosted. Let's go. McGilton going 122 to the 60-foot, 479 in the 8th mile, 729. Oh, he got out of the gas early, though. 186 is all he runs. James Taal,
too
quick. Yep, womp, womp, no good. 840, 164, and he'll have to come back around. Camaro driver. That's how you do a drag race, ladies and gentlemen. Leave within a tenth of a second of each other, go door handle to door handle all the way down, side by side, 760s. Yeah, let's see some more of that. Left-hand side, this is the auction Corvette known as Ruby. Out of Cleetus McFarland's camp, James Taal behind the wheel this weekend. Keep saying this weekend like it's a weekend drag race. I need to get into the week. Right now, James needs to get into the 850 range, not the 840 range. That's been where he has been. Still good. Ruby turned up good, 125 to the 60-foot. This is not going to be an 850. 778, 173 for Ruby. Well, if he was looking for an 850, he missed by a bunch. Somebody must have miscommunicated on that one.
He's looking down. I think he wants to tune it up some more.
Looks like it.
Yeah,
Looks
because
like
he's in
it.
that same category as Mikkel Borgren, the car that has run 680s. That's the Volvo station wagon. So, yeah, they're probably going to tweak it up some more.
How about another 6-second car? How about Sean Fink's 55 in the left lane?
Yeah, this is a guy who went 720s on his first day at Bradenton and then found 0.3 of a second. He went 695, over 200 miles an hour yesterday. That is the orange and gray car over on the left side of the racetrack. Sean Fink, some of you might remember him. He had a two-door Chevy Nova station wagon that he ran in drag week competition. Beautiful car, but I'll tell you what, he learned what he needed to, came back with a lighter chassis, more power, and obviously 6-second proven. Over on the right-hand side, who do we have, Adam?
That is, of course, Jack Stan Jimmy, James Taal. That's the C6 Corvette out of the Cleetus McFarland camp.
Yeah, this is the auction Corvette that they bought, and it went down the spiral immediately. They found out it had a truck block in it. Let's throw a turbo on it. Fink making one work on the left side, 113 to the 60-foot top end says 703. He just misses it. 197 miles an hour. How about James Taal? 851 in a limited category where you cannot run faster than 8.50. So James Taal already sitting on a good time slip, but I'd be willing to bet you we will see at least two numbers better than that, 8.509 or better here today. And that's how close that class really is. Ladies and gentlemen, again, you think that you persevere and you have problems. This guy kissed the entire wall down the right-hand side and still went 800 miles on the street to 4 different racetracks and completed SIG Week. That is saying something.
And I talked to him in the pits earlier today. He actually found a guy that is local here that has quarter panels for that car that is bringing him to the racetrack later today so we can get that thing tuned up.
Once again, racing community looking out for its own. Here comes a rematch, and they have switched lanes. This is real interesting. James Taal and Parker Mitchell, both of them 8.50 limited. Now, earlier, James Taal went 868. That's a good pass. He could hand it in as far as like it's legal, but it's not good as far as it's too slow. He needs something much better.
And then Parker, of course, put up 842, which is too fast.
Yeah, you can't hand that in. If you hand that in, you're going to get a 20-second time.
So we'll see what happens here. Looking for 850s on the board, side by side. Red,
single turbo.
is
capable of much faster, but again, this really gives you the chance to dial in your car. Oh, Parker Mitchell slows down a little bit, but not enough. 300ths of a second, 845, 164. No Moss. Got to do it again. James Taal.
Street classes that are around. They make you do like a 30-mile drive, and I'll tell you what, this deal, if you got a 30-mile drive, you're like almost done.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, the one thing that I wish that we could do is we could run a longer cruise on some of these true street deals, but to be honest, the biggest issue you would run into with that is time.
Right.
You know, trying to get it as part of a big event package does make it hard, which is why when you do something like this, and especially when you go track to track, it does make it easier, because otherwise all you're doing is you're just trying to like ride around and figure out, you know, okay, well, what's a good circle or what's a good square so you don't break up the group and all that. I mean, it just, you know, it's kind of the same thing. It makes it difficult to try and figure it out. Speaking of difficult, I'll tell you what, this is a car that normally they don't have difficulties with, but right now, James Taal, the guy they call Jack Stan Jimmy over in the car they call Ruby, the auction Corvette, kind of shaking his head a little bit. I mean, this thing is slow compared to what it should be running. I mean this thing runs it's run 70s.
Right.
And unfortunately, he can't get close to that 850 time slip. He tried to get closer, and then he ended up slowing down.
Yeah, so hopefully he can get the tune-up right on this thing and it'll rip the racetrack and he can get to 850. Let's see what happens.
This is third pass today. That is an improvement over what he has been doing, but again, they don't want to go too fast. Let's going to be close. 863, 159, that's better.
That's his best leg, but it's
But
still
a 10 slow. It's not going to help.
if you're not like 850 like we were talking earlier, like a 3 maybe, even a 4, you're kind of nothing in the burnout box. We got James Taal in the left lane, James in that C5 auction Corvette, and of course Parker Mitchell in the right lane, teeth and turbos.
Yeah, let's bring back a rematch. Now, here's a case of where you're looking for 8.50.
And
Cleetus McFarland down there looking over one of his cars being wheeled by his buddy, otherwise known as Jack Stan Jimmy. You got LS George down there standing there with the camera. You can probably watch all of this on Cleetus McFarland's channel, I'm guessing, the next couple of days, as they have gone from track to track, and he loves to document that stuff.
I'll tell you what, Parker Mitchell has not gotten a time slip that he can turn in yet. He's
No,
on
it would equate 20 basically.
and 845, so he needs an 850 or slower
Right.
to turn in.
Meanwhile, James Taal on the other hand, his best run, 863, and he's about a 10th of a second off, so got to tune it up just right. James, the 60-foot is much better. He might be a hair fast, though. No, he's okay.
858?
No, look at the speed, 148. He got out of it.
And 876 for Parker, he can turn
He
that in.
also
but
got
that-
out of it.
But that is not one he's going to look to turn in, unfortunately.
No.
In
Now
that
the good
850.
news is both of them were above 850, so they both now
You can
turn them in.
turn them in.
Now,
Scott
here
Brown.
comes Larry Albright. Now, I'm going to tell you, here's a guy right here that has already locked up his first sick week. So he's done. He already ran 784, so he's done.
Yep, and I have not seen